So today I'll be showing you guys how to solo queue to diamond or platinum, because in my opinion those two ranks were not that different from each other, other than in platinum you lose more RP. Now first I'll start out with some more general tips that have helped me climb in like pretty much every game that has a rank system, and then I'll move on to specific Apex tips. Now the first and arguably the most important tip is your mentality. If you're going game into game with a negative mentality, thinking about that one teammate that made that stupid decision that cost you the game, it will hinder your gameplay, and perhaps you might even end up as that one teammate that makes a stupid decision for a team that costs you the game. You always want to have a fresh mind when you're queuing up. My biggest tip is to just, if you lose 2 games in a row, I'd say just take a break, play arena, play a different game. Just avoid tilt queuing as much as possible. There was a time in platinum where I was kind of hard stuck, like plat 2 I think, plat 3, where I just got bad teammates like 10 times in a row. We were hot dropping, pushing literally every single fight we shouldn't have been pushing. Some games I lost RP, some games I didn't. I lost about like 70 to 100 RP during those 10 games. The game on the screen right now is actually the game I actually earned all my RP back from those 10 games. Now I was extremely lucky, I only lost 100. But since I wasn't tilt queuing, and like every time I lost 2 games in a row, I just got off and I minimized the amount of RP I lost, I was able to earn it all back in one game. Just remember that the most important tip is to not tilt queue and make sure your mentality is 100% ready for the next game. Now the second tip is to communicate with your team. Now out of every like 5 games I get teammates with mics, but like the rest of them, no one has a mic, or they just choose not to speak, which is extremely like hindering, because communication in Apex or any video game is extremely important. Now if no one is using their mic in your game, that doesn't mean you shouldn't use your mic. One person giving comms is way better than no one at all. Now if you're the only one calming in a team, you will have to IGL. If you don't know what that means in-game leader, which is basically the one who makes all the decisions for your team, the one who determines what fights to take, what fights to, you know, back up from. It's basically just the leader of the team. Now this just means that your game sense and game awareness should be extremely good. Now you also have to be aware that you're solo queuing and your teammates will not always, you know, follow your route. It's probably like an 80% chance that they'll listen to you, and the other 20% is just going to be like, you know, oh, I'm going to do my own thing, whatever, I don't care what you say. And at that point you either just leave them, or if your other teammate follows them, just at that point just go with them and, you know, just try to fight the fight. Hopefully you don't get third partied. But yeah, moving on to the third tip, try to play with your team as much as possible. There will be times where the fight is just unwinnable, one of your teammates is knocked, and the best thing to do is just to run away and just play for placement. But every chance you get, please fight with your team, because it's really annoying to have like 2 people fighting and then there's just like 1 person just looting. This isn't really a tip I can go in too deep into it, but just remember to play with your team as much as possible. Now my 4th tip is actually where to land at, and since Olympus just switched, I haven't really found a place to land at yet. I just strongly recommend to avoid hot dropping as much as possible. Also, one of the things I've noticed is that you get third partied a lot if you stay around like Hammond Labs and anywhere around it. So if you choose to fight there, just be extremely careful, because it's a really high likely chance that you will get third partied here. Some places I've had success so far in the new split is Docks, Oasis, Hydroponics, and the Gardens. Just make sure wherever you're landing, there's not more than 1 team landing there. If you're landing in a place with 2 or more teams landing there as well, you're gonna have a really hard time getting guns, getting loot, and you'll have a lot more 50-50 fights, because it's really gonna suck when your enemy has an R99 and purple shields and all you have is a grenade and syringes. Now I'm gonna recommend some legends for you guys to use in ranked that are far beyond more useful than the other legends. Now this is my opinion, so if you guys think different, then go ahead and use whatever you want. But this is what is useful to me and what's helped me climb: Bloodhound, Octane, Gibraltar, Lifeline, Valkyrie, and Wraith. Now if there's other legends that you feel like are more important than these, then, you know, they're your mains. You know how to play them better than I do. But these are the mains that I've been using, or that have been on my team that actually helped me win the games. I'll explain why each character is good in their own way. Now Bloodhound is self-explanatory. His scans are extremely useful in team fights. His scan lets you and your teammates know where the enemy is at, and his ultimate can win a lot of team fights. Now movement characters like Octane, Wraith, and Valkyrie can save you and your team a lot. Now with Octane, his jump pad comes back extremely fast and you can get out of situations extremely easily with him. Same with Valkyrie and Wraith, but their ult charges are, you know, they take longer than Octane's. And defensive characters like Gibby and Lifeline can be extremely useful in team fights where someone gets knocked early in the fight and then you can just bubble and revive that person, or Lifeline just, you know, taps the person and revives them. Now if I didn't say the person you like playing the most, that doesn't mean that they're not viable. Remember that these are recommendations for solo queuing, so this is what's going to help your team the best to win games and have better chances of surviving, like, you know, sticky situations such as a third party or someone getting downed early in the fight. Now for the next tip is when to take fights and when to not take fights. The main fights you should be taking are obviously the ones at the beginning of the game, third party a couple teams, and then end game fights. Now by the time round 1 ends or there's like 10 squads left, I recommend just playing for placement and going for those end game fights. Try not to initiate fights as much as possible because I've lost a lot of games, a lot of fights from teammates initiating fights we shouldn't have been fighting in the first place, such as the storm's literally behind us and wow, look at us fighting a squad that's in front of us and we have white shields and they have purple and there are also times where you initiate a fight and then you get third partied. Try to avoid initiating fights and just become the third party of the fight. Now there will be times where you will have to initiate a fight, and in these situations make sure that the fight ends within like 20 to 30 seconds because in this time you can get third partied by 1 or 2 squads because bullets in this game are extremely loud, so you can hear bullets across the map. Now those were my tips to solo queue to diamond or platinum in Apex Legends. Now if there's any more tips you guys would like to share, just leave them out in the comments down below. Now keep in mind that this is actually my first full season playing Apex Legends, so if I can do it, you can do it as well. Good luck to all of you trying to get to diamond or platinum in this split, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh my god, I'm diamond! I didn't do shit that game, but I don't give a fuck.
You are the Apex champions.
I didn't even know that was like the last one.